Greg Abbott tells Jasmine Crockett, "Texas isn't yours." Her comeback shocks him. What does it look like when power, pride, and a crisis converge at the highest level of Texas politics and everything goes off script? Inside the towering stone walls of the Austin state capitol, a meeting meant to be routine erupts into the kind of explosive confrontation that no one, least of all Governor Greg Abbott, saw coming. The state is paralyzed by another catastrophic winter storm. Millions are left shivering in the dark, hospitals run on fumes, and outrage simmers as federal aid, billions in relief dollars, sits untouched, blocked by Abbott's determination to reject any help tied to Washington strings. That's the spark pulling Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett into the governor's office. Ostensibly, just another negotiation. In reality, it's the opening move of a viral showdown destined to leave permanent marks on both political careers. This isn't just a clash over policy, it's a study in contrasts. Greg Abbott, a decade-deep governor and symbol of Texas conservatism, rules with an iron fist and isn't shy about picking public fights, especially when there's a chance to frame himself as Texas's last line of defense against federal encroachment. To his supporters, Abbott is a warrior, unyielding even in the face of adversity. He's weathered storms, not just literal, but political. Abortion bans, border battles, and a state energy grid in perpetual crisis. For years, he's used his wheelchair as a symbol of resilience, refusing to let vulnerability show in public. In this fight, Abbott still sees himself as the alpha. He's on his turf, surrounded by staff and the towering symbols of Texas power. On the other side, Jasmine Crockett, the freshman Dallas congresswoman, brings a different energy, a new era blend of relentless legal focus and real-world conviction. She's no stranger to hostile rooms, having faced down prosecutors and political bullies alike. Crockett's style is surgical, guided less by volume and more by the calculated calm honed in actual courtrooms. Where Abbott weighs every move for its impact on Fox News or his donor list, Crockett comes with receipts. First-hand stories from suffering constituents, data, and the hard truth that real Texans, not outsiders, are paying the price for paralyzed politics. Abbott's staff, smelling blood, sets the stage. Cameras hidden, communications strategists poised, expecting to catch Crockett flustered, outgunned, and easy to spin as just another meddling D.C. Democrat. They're sure a confrontation about states' rights versus federal overreach will play perfectly to the peanut gallery. Instead, from the moment Crockett leans in, smiling, undeterred, it's clear the real trap is for Abbott. Every line he delivers, whether about real Texas values or the supposed dangers of federal aid, meets her steely, authentic counter. She reminds him, and the cameras he forgot were pointed at himself, that her roots are Texan to the core, born, raised, educated, and voted in by Texans for Texans. Abbott's anger builds, fueled by years of political showdowns, but as his voice rises, Crockett never flinches. Then comes the unscripted moment no one can believe is real. Abbott, red-faced, pounds his desk and bellows, "Stay out of Texas!" The silence is monumental. Everyone can feel it, a governor cracking under pressure, a new leader calmly, devastatingly seizing the high ground. Crockett replies with quiet authority, "I've never left. Maybe it's time you remembered who Texas really belongs to." At that instant, the gotcha plan unravels. Power, the old kind rooted in posturing, meets a new kind rooted in preparation, authenticity, and the ability to keep your cool when the stakes couldn't be higher. Before long, that private confrontation explodes onto every feed across America. Clips are everywhere, Crockett's measured retorts, Abbott's meltdown, headlines dissecting the moment he finally met his match. Everyone is asking the same question. How did a meeting about federal disaster relief turn into a full-blown redefinition of what it means to be a leader? As #StayOut of Texas blazes across timelines and political pundits debate whether Abbott can recover, one thing is clear: leadership now lives and dies in the viral moments nobody plans, and sometimes the most important lessons are delivered not with a shout, but with the calm, surgical clarity of someone who never forgets where she came from or who she's fighting for. In one corner, you have Greg Abbott, the quintessential Texas powerhouse whose name is synonymous with unwavering conservatism and a political brand forged in fire. For nearly a decade, Abbott has ruled Texas with a fist as ironclad as the borders he's worked to secure. Confined to a wheelchair since a tragic accident in his youth, he's built an image of relentless toughness, refusing to show weakness and doubling down on aggressive stances that rally his loyal base. From championing massive border walls to imposing some of the most restrictive abortion laws in the nation, Abbott is the man who defines Texas tough. A governor who prides himself on standing up to Washington, to California, and anyone else he sees as threatening Texan sovereignty. His office is a shrine to political victories, decorated with images of landmark conservative legislation and powerful meetings with party leaders. To Abbott, a freshman congresswoman from Dallas is just another political challenge, one he's certain to dominate on his home turf. But the other corner tells a sharply different story. Jasmine Crockett is a 42-year-old civil rights attorney turned congresswoman, whose star is rapidly rising in Washington and beyond. Unlike polished political operatives who hone carefully scripted messages, Crockett's power comes from raw authenticity forged in courtrooms and communities. She's not new to confrontation. Her background defending the marginalized has taught her to stand firm under pressure, use facts with precision, and turn an opponent's aggression into their undoing. Her fiery speeches on the House floor have gone viral, punctuated by moments that capture a new generation's spirit, unapologetic, deeply principled, and never backing down. Whereas Abbott relies on legacy, muscle, and a persona built over decades, Crockett represents the wave of leaders whose courage comes from lived experience and a fierce dedication to justice. When she speaks, it's not about showmanship. It's about real people facing real struggles, whether in freezing homes or overcrowded hospitals. This showdown isn't just a meeting between two elected officials. It's a symbolic clash between past and future, tradition and change, power asserted versus power earned. Texas, at the brink of disaster from yet another winter grid failure, sees these forces collide in a tense meeting overshadowed by the suffering of thousands. Abbott's posture screams control and defiance. Crockett's calm smile signals preparation and resolve. While Abbott embodies the iron fist of established authority, Crockett wields the quiet strength of truth and accountability. Abbott's fight is backed by the weight of office. He commands a $200 billion budget, controls the National Guard, and can call special sessions at will. Yet, his political mindset has been shaped by dogged opposition to anything perceived as federal overreach, including blocking billions in federal aid tied to demands for environmental upgrades to the failing power grid. This stance made him a conservative hero to many, but a barrier to crisis relief for thousands of Texans. Meanwhile, Crockett comes armed not with power plays but with the voices of those left shivering in the cold, uplifted by her legal knowledge and a growing record of political fearlessness. She's come prepared to break through the political theater and demand results, refusing to be just another face to dismiss. The energy in the room is palpable, a generational and philosophical standoff where Abbott's signature temper will be tested against Crockett's composed determination. Abbott is used to controlling narratives through sheer force and intimidation, but Crockett knows that in today's politics, facts, preparation, and authenticity can turn the tables on even the most formidable opponents. This isn't just a political debate, it's a moment that lays bare the contrasting visions for Texas's future. And as the cameras roll and the microphones catch every tense word, the battle lines are drawn. It will be a test not just of political skill, but of who Texans believe truly stands for them in their darkest hour. Every legendary confrontation starts with a crisis, and in this saga, it isn't manufactured headlines driving the stakes, it's the bitter reality on the ground in Texas. In the weeks before this explosive meeting, the state was blindsided by another historic winter storm. Freezing rain lashed the roads, power lines sagged beneath sheets of ice, and millions of everyday Texans were plunged into darkness once again. The state's aging electric grid, long a political flashpoint, collapsed at the worst possible moment. Entire neighborhoods took refuge in makeshift warming centers. Emergency rooms scrambled for diesel to keep generators running. Heartbreaking stories multiplied. Elderly residents freezing, families burning furniture to stay warm, children sleeping in kolcha, eights and blankets under flickering flashlight beams. With public anger mounting, the federal government stepped in, offering billions in disaster aid aimed not only at immediate relief but also at finally forcing Texas to upgrade its fragile grid to meet national standards for resilience and, crucially, for environmental compliance. Abbott, however, bristled at the offer. The money, he argued, came with federal strings. requirements to invest in renewable energy sources, modernize the grid, and provide transparent oversight of where the funds went. Abbott saw it as a Trojan horse for climate policy and government overreach. He turned the moment into a standoff, painting himself as Texas's final bulwark against coastal elites and their supposed disregard for local industry, especially oil and gas. His message: Texas can take care of its own. But in the city of Dallas, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's phones rang off the hook with desperation. Her constituents, the people Abbott claimed to defend, were begging for light, heat, and hope. Crockett toured storm-battered neighborhoods firsthand, listening to parents who lost sleep with each falling temperature and business owners on the brink after days without revenue or power. In back-to-back calls with federal agencies, she helped negotiate new guarantees. Federal dollars would reach people in need and would create jobs, rebuild schools, and provide long-term stability. The catch? State officials led by Abbott refused to approve the deal, clinging to their line about federal meddling. The meeting in the governor's office was never meant as a simple formality. It was a last-ditch effort to break the deadlock and deliver aid before the crisis got worse. Abbott's staff, thinking they could use the opportunity to humiliate Crockett and reinforce his image as a champion of Texas independence, arranged for hidden cameras and the talking points, a plan that would backfire spectacularly. Crockett came not as a party operative or D.C. insider, but as a daughter of Texas, demanding urgent answers on behalf of her district. Her mission was clear: cut through the grandstanding, sidestep the culture war soundbites, and force Abbott to confront the real consequences of his politics. For Abbott, why they're here is simple. He wants to prove, once more, that Texas doesn't bow to Washington, no matter how cold the night gets or how desperate the calls for relief become. He sees Crockett as a symbol of the push for a new Texas, one that welcomes oversight, embraces change, and listens to community needs over outdated dogma. For Crockett, the stakes are as personal as they are political. She isn't just defending numbers in a spreadsheet or ticking a box for federal priorities. She's fighting for neighbors, people who trusted her to challenge power, cut through inaction, and bring tangible help. This moment isn't about winning a PR battle. It's about saving lives, restoring dignity, and challenging the age-old script that says only those in back rooms with old power sets the rules for who gets helped and who gets left in the cold. And so, as these two forces meet in Abbott's office, the real drama unfolds. A struggle not over headlines, but over who gets to define what it means to serve, the governor guarding his legacy, or the congresswoman determined to bring her state in from the storm. Sometimes the most defining moments in politics aren't born from planned speeches or carefully rehearsed lines, but from attempts at subtle manipulation and the tightrope act of public image control. In this high-stakes Texas standoff, it's Greg Abbott who believes he holds all the cards, a governor well-schooled in the art of stagecraft and advantage. But today, as the storm crisis rages outside and the desperate calls for action rise, Abbott's decision to turn a policy meeting into a scripted ambush may become his undoing. Abbott's communications team had it all mapped out. In their playbook, Jasmine Crockett was just another out-of-state liberal, an outsider whose credentials could be undermined in the court of public opinion, even if she'd grown up Texas through and through. They staged the governor's office with an eye for spectacle, a massive flag, the sturdy oak desk, family photos carefully centered for the camera. Hidden equipment was set to roll not to faithfully record a meeting of equals, but to selectively capture Crockett's every response, ready to be snipped into clips that might later reinforce the governor's narrative. In closed-door prep meetings, Abbott's advisors even mused about using any flash of anger or stumble on Crockett's part to build the image of an emotional or unprepared foe from D.C., an easy mark for a strong Texan rebuke. Abbott entered the meeting with a personal script, eager to lecture on Texas independence, the legendary Alamo spirit, and the evils of outsider interference. The lines are well worn from 100 stump speeches, but this audience is different. He invokes Texas's heritage as a warning, spinning tales of rugged self-sufficiency, and hints darkly that Crockett's advocacy for federal aid is a betrayal of true Texas values. What Abbott doesn't realize is that the very dog whistles meant to corner a rival only embolden Crockett to stand taller, straighter, and more fearlessly Texan. From the moment she sits, Crockett makes it clear she isn't intimidated by the symbols of power or the crusty patriotism that plays so well on cable TV. Her legal training guides her, pushing past the posturing to steady her voice when Abbott tries to bait her on gun rights, abortion, or education. He tells her, half mocking, "We don't need Washington telling us how to fix Texas." Crockett simply replies that she's not in Washington. She's in Austin, representing Dallas, fighting for Texans family by family, block by block. The conversation turns sharper as Abbott questions her authenticity, pointedly insisting, "You may have been born here, but you don't represent Texas." This is no accident. It's a calculated ploy to box her in, frame her as part of the radical left, and with cameras rolling, provoke an emotional outburst. But Crockett doesn't take the bait. Instead, every attempted jab about her age, her voting record, even her presence in the governor's office, receives a measured, unwavering answer rooted in her biography and commitment to her constituents. "My district is Texas. My neighbors are freezing. I'm here to help, not to posture." Abbott's frustration simmers as Crockett quietly counters every soundbite with data and personal stories, names, block numbers, families in crisis. The narrative begins to shift. The trap they set for her snaps back as Abbott himself drifts off script, repeating canned talking points while Crockett remains unscripted, direct, and relatable. The very surveillance devices meant to catch her off guard are now capturing something clearer: a governor straining against the facts and a congresswoman staying laser-focused on the lives at stake. The longer the meeting lasts, the more Abbott's team realizes their plan is slipping. Crockett's calm makes it impossible for Abbott to play the bully without looking unhinged. Every smirk, every raised voice, every attempted interruption is being preserved in full color, crystal clarity, not as evidence of weakness from an outsider, but as a record of a leader losing his narrative in real time. As the scene closes, it's abundantly clear. Sometimes the most effective traps are the ones set for your opponent, only to find, when the lights come up and the cameras keep rolling, you've only ensnared yourself. It's often said that real political battles aren't won in the thunder of slogans or the grandeur of press conferences, but in those moments when composure cracks and raw impulse is exposed. That's exactly where we find ourselves now, the pitch of the meeting climbing, the risk of reputation shifting. What began as Abbott's stage-managed ambush now transforms in stunning clarity into an unforced error, the governor's iron control dissolving before the eyes of his staff, his rival, and the cameras rolling all along. The exact trigger is almost mundane. Crockett, still firm but polite, asks what specific improvements Abbott would propose for the grid beyond rejecting federal aid. His answer, a stalling tirade about Texas pride and resisting socialist mandates, falls flat. She counters, "We can debate the details, Governor, but the basics are simple. Right now, babies, veterans, and the elderly are freezing. If Washington's money comes with requirements to keep the power on, isn't that what Texans deserve?" The punch isn't in the volume, but the substance. And for the first time, Abbott is visibly out of answers that don't sound like old campaign talking points. His hand tightens on the edge of the desk, jaw clenched. Abbott's legendary Texas bravado turns brittle. "You just don't get it, do you?" he snaps, voice straining as he tries to regain the upper hand. "Texans take care of their own. We don't need outsiders telling us how to run our state." Gone is the slow, calculated drawl. Instead, his sentences are clipped, angry. Crockett doesn't rise to his level. She repeats evenly, "Governor, I am a Texan. I am here because my district needs help. Texans are begging you. Let us help them." The words hang like an accusation and an invitation at once. That's what finally snaps the thread. With a pounding fist, Abbott rattles the mug on his desk. His voice rises, filling the cavernous room. "I said, stay out of Texas. I am the governor, and I will not have Washington politici, and especially liberal radicals, telling me what to do in my own state." The finality of the outburst leaves everyone silent. Steam practically pours from Abbott's ears as the tension sucks the oxygen out of the air. The staffers freeze, knowing that a dozen recorders are rolling. They came for a viral moment, just not this one. What could have become an awkward pause crystallizes into history as Crockett, calm as ever, meets Abbott's glare and responds, "Governor, with respect, I never left Texas. I was born here. I serve here. And with all due respect, my neighbors, your neighbors, are freezing. This isn't DC against Texas. It's Texans versus the cold, versus bureaucracy, and versus decisions that keep relief out of their hands. She lets the words settle, measured but striking. If you want to talk about outsiders, maybe ask your campaign donors in New York and California if they plan to stay out of Texas too. By now, Abbott's composure is gone. Face flushed, knuckles white, he sputters, reaching for retorts that land awkwardly or not at all. The "stay out of Texas" line, the phrase meant as a finishing blow, instead loops back on him, echoing through the chamber as the signal of a leader who's lost the thread, and the crowd. Crockett doesn't gloat. Her legal training takes over. Document, hold steady, let your opponent's words do the work. By the time Abbott's aides signal frantically to shut down the cameras or change the subject, the damage is complete. The governor's loss of composure, his meltdown, is wrapped, labeled, and already halfway to the public domain. Social media, it turns out, doesn't care about carefully curated optics when the actual footage shows the mighty caught unprepared. And as Crockett collects her notes, unshaken, it's obvious to all. The meeting is over. Not because someone won, but because the curtain has finally been pulled back on how far confidence unanchored by compassion can collapse in the spotlight. In a matter of minutes, the power dynamic of Texas has shifted, all captured by the very people who tried to orchestrate a spectacle in the first place. Within hours of the fateful Abbott-Crockett confrontation, the political aftershock began pulsing across every screen in Texas, and then the country. It didn't matter that the meeting was supposed to be private, or that Abbott's staff had planned to control the narrative. All it took was one leak. A member of the governor's own team, aide, saboteur, or simply someone shaken by what they'd witnessed, sent the uncut footage to an anonymous account. From there, it ignited. The explosion started on Twitter. The hashtag #StayOutOfTexas blazed its way to the top, ironically turned against Abbott, not Crockett. The clip that went viral wasn't just the governor's infamous desk-pounding outburst. It was Crockett's composed reply, her recitation of her Texas credentials, and the devastating moment she flipped Abbott's rhetoric on its head. Maybe it's time you remembered who Texas really belongs to. Within 6 hours, the video notched 5 million views, shared by everyone from progressive activists to moderate Republicans stunned by Abbott's loss of composure. Memes appeared with lightning speed. One compared Abbott's airborne coffee mug to a career in freefall, set to slow-motion music. TikTok creators remixed Crockett's calm, fact-laden retorts into motivational audio. On Instagram, short reels showed her calmly packing her papers while Abbott sputtered in the background. Even on platforms historically friendly to Abbott, like Truth Social and certain conservative Facebook groups, the footage simply couldn't be spun. There it was, high definition and inescapable, a governor who'd lost control. For Crockett, the moment was transformative. Her social media follower count soared by hundreds of thousands overnight. Outlets from CNN to the Texas Tribune replayed her best lines. Cable panels called it a masterclass in poise, and state politicians, Republican and Democrat alike, publicly praised her for representing real Texans with grace under fire. Meanwhile, she used her newfound platform to highlight ongoing needs for storm recovery in her district, refusing to spike the football or gloat, but instead doubling down on advocacy. Abbott's camp scrambled, their initial statement branding the video out of context and warning about outside influence only exacerbated the fallout as full versions and transcripts flooded the internet. In right-leaning circles, the best defense offered was awkward silence or attempts to invoke the old playbook, portraying Abbott as passionate, not angry. It didn't stick. Local Texas papers, once neutral or supportive of Abbott, ran editorials lamenting the governor's behavior and lauding Crockett. The Dallas Morning News roasted him for failing constituents in crisis. The Houston Chronicle argued this was a lesson in why flexibility beats bluster. The most telling sign of a genuine viral shift came from Texas's die-hard traditionalists. Ranchers, business leaders, and even former Abbott donors quietly praised Crockett's resolve in private forums. A surprising number of Republican-leaning voters expressed, via polls and comment threads, their respect for a leader who prioritized suffering citizens over political games. This wasn't just a blip. Abbott canceled scheduled press conferences after a series of disastrous questions on the incident. Instead of moving on, journalists fixated on the story, digging deeper into Texas's grid woes, and every inquiry boomeranged back to his breakdown and Crockett's composure. As Abbott's approval numbers dipped, Crockett's rose, talk of her as a future statewide contender, gained traction overnight. In the new era of 24-hour outrage and instant memes, one unscripted moment can reshape entire careers. The message to every politician was clear: the age of manufactured gotchas is over. When the truth escapes, even by accident, it travels faster, hits harder, and endures far longer than anything produced in a strategy room. In the aftermath of one viral meeting, the fault lines of Texas politics, and maybe American leadership as a whole, have shifted. What was supposed to be a tightly scripted display of gubernatorial dominance exploded instead into a defining case study on what happens when power is wielded without empathy, and preparation collides head-on with performance. Governor Greg Abbott, for years the model of conservative strength, left his own office exposed as a place where bluster and indignation can't beat facts, calm, or authenticity. Jasmine Crockett, once seen as a promising freshman congresswoman, left as an avatar for a new generation of leadership, one that never confuses a loud voice for a strong one. The lesson is clear. In this era of instant replay and ceaseless connectivity, the old rules are gone. You can't spin away a loss of composure when a million smartphone screens replay it, meme it, and quote it back to you in real time. Abbott's "Stay Out of Texas," intended as a mic drop, became a punchline, a rallying cry for unity, and a warning to those who think raw volume can drown out uncomfortable truths. Crockett's surgical replies proved more than clever retorts. They underscored the enduring value of showing up for people, staying focused under pressure, and knowing your own story as well as the talking points you challenge. As the world watched, Texans, regardless of their party, found themselves reflecting on what real leadership looks like. Is it doubling down on slogans, or is it listening to the realities of those you serve? The memes faded, and the press moved to the next scandal, but what stuck was a quieter, deeper shift. The recognition that New Texas isn't about who shouts the loudest on social media or who controls the narrative for a day. It's about who will keep their cool when the room heats up and who will fight for the people still suffering while politicians spar. Abbott's image, once impregnable, took more than a political hit. Polls dipped. Editorials urged a reckoning with the limits of defiance as policy. The governor, for all his legal expertise and decades of control, found out that, in a modern crisis, the most dangerous adversary isn't the federal government or a talking head from D.C. It's a peer who refuses to play by old scripts, whose loyalty to the hometown story is stronger than any party loyalty, and whose calm under fire can become the blueprint for surviving the next crisis. For Jasmine Crockett, the aftermath brings opportunity and responsibility. Viral fame is fleeting, but her refusal to gloat, choosing instead to return focus to Texans in need, showed that substance trumps spectacle. She's now seen as a model not just for embattled progressives, but for any leader who wants to do more than win the last news cycle. Someone who can take the blows, keep their footing, and still talk policy when the spotlight is harshest. And for the rest of us, the viewers, voters, and citizens watching grainy clips and reading snarky headlines, the real question lingers. What matters more, the headline or the follow-through? In a country hungry for hope, moments like these remind us that leadership is tested not in the comfort of allies, but in the discomfort of real opposition, real crisis, and real accountability. So what kind of leader would you want in the next viral moment? The one who shouts past the problem, or the one who sits across the desk, unflinching, and refuses to surrender the cause because the pressure is on? Leave your thoughts below, subscribe if you believe the real story is always bigger than the meme, and get ready for more moments where poise, not power, steals the spotlight. Ready for more moments where poise beats posturing and real leadership gets put to the test? If today's showdown in Texas changed how you see power, or gave you hope that courage and clarity can still win in the heat of crisis, now's your turn to get involved. Drop a comment below. Do you think calm under fire is the new gold standard for leadership, or do big personalities still run the show? Who do you want representing you when things really get tough? If you want more raw, unscripted breakdowns of the political battles reshaping America, hit that like button to show your support. Make sure to subscribe because the next viral confrontation could be just around the corner, and you won't want to miss the inside story when the cameras are rolling and history is being made in real time. Turn on notifications so you're first in line for every unfiltered analysis, strategy deep dive, and behind-the-scenes reveal. Because here, we believe the truth is always worth watching and the journey from headline to history is never over. Thanks for being part of the conversation. Let's keep demanding better together.